Dear learners, I'm Ankita Peter. I'm the counselor from DPS Expressway, and in this program we will learn about memory. Memory makes us, defines us, builds our life. If we couldn't recall the who, what, where and when of our everyday lives, we would never be able to manage. We mull over ideas in the present with the help of memory that helps us to build our tomorrow with the use of past events. Without a memory of the past, we cannot operate in the present or think about the future. We would not be able to remember what we did yesterday, what we have done today, or what we plan to do tomorrow. Without memory, we could not learn anything. Memory is involved in processing vast amount of information. This information takes many different forms, examples, images, sounds or meaning. Have you ever wondered why we remember the name of our favorite actor, actress or singer or our childhood friends, interesting incidents relating to them, our family members and so many other things, and do not forget them over long periods? All this is possible because of memory. It is because human memory has immense potential. It is crucial in our life because it helps building bridges in the flow of experiences and allows us to have a sense of continuity. Though it is malleable, that tends to decay with age. Memory refers to retaining and recalling information over a period of time, depending upon the nature of cognitive task you are required to perform. In this lesson, we will discuss about the nature of memory, the differentiation between stages of memory, forgetting and strategies for enhancing memory. Memory and forgetting. Psychologists consider memory and learning to be different processes, though both are closely related. Learning refers to the process of storing the outcomes of learning in the form of information that can be retrieved when required. Memory refers to the set of processes involved in storing information. This specific process is termed as retention. In simple words, memory is the personal record of past experiences. It is the brain's ability to store information to use it later. Thus, memory can be defined as perceptually active mental system that receives, encodes, modifies and retrieves information. The process in which information is encoded, stored and retrieved is memory. Encoding allows information from the outside world to be sensed in the form of chemical and physical stimuli. In the first stage, the information must be changed so that it may be put into the encoding process. Storage is the second memory stage or process. This entails that information is maintained over short periods of time. Finally, the third process is the retrieval of information that has been stored. Such information must be located and returned to the consciousness. Some retrieval attempts may be effortless due to the type of information, and other attempts to remember stored information may be more demanding for various reasons. We cannot directly observe the process of memory, but indirectly we can measure the retention by three methods: recall, recognition and relearning. Measuring retention: recognition, recall and relearning. Recognition. Recognition memory is the ability to recognize previously encountered events, objects or people. For example, when you are not able to remember someone's name, but you know that you have seen his or her face before. The recall process. It is a process of using a general stimulus and finding the information about it from memory. For example, when one tries to remember a name without a face in front. The relearning process. It is the method of learning the learned material another time. It consumes less time than the original learning. Stages of memory. Memory is essential to all our lives. Psychologists have discovered that memory is not a single or unitary system, it has more than one distinct system or more than one type. According to the most acceptable model of memory, there are three major systems of memory: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Information moves successively through these three systems if attention is given to the material. If attention, focused awareness, which is not given, information does not move further into the system. Sensory memory. During every moment of an organism's life, sensory information is being taken in by sensory receptors and processed by the nervous system. The sensory information is stored in sensory memory just long enough to be transferred to short-term memory. Humans have five main senses: the sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Sensory memory, which is SM, allows individuals to retain impressions of sensory information after the original stimulus has ceased. Sensory memory holds representation of sensory input for very brief periods of time, depending upon the modality involved. The sensory registers differ for each sense. Short-term memory. Short-term memory is primary or active memory. When rehearsal or active maintenance is prevented, the duration of short-term memory is believed to be in the order of seconds. Some information from sensory memory transfers to STM, which has a limited capacity to hold information that has the capacity of holding, but not manipulating. A small amount of information in mind in an active, readily available state for a short period of time. The capacity of STM is associated with the magical number 7 plus minus 2. If the number of units goes higher, new information displays or writes over the existing units. However, this limitation in capacity can be effectively expanded by a process known as chunking. That is, several units of meaningful information are packed into one chunk. For example, the number 1947200 to 1941, which is 12 digits, can easily be remembered. 12 digits are chunked into 3 units: 1947, 2002, 1941, all referring to calendar years. However, it does not passively hold information, rather actively process information. That is why STM is also known as working memory. The long-term memory, that is LTM. It refers to the memory system for the retention of large amounts of information for long periods of time. It is the memory system that permits us to remember events that happened many years ago, yesterday, last year, and so on. It is the long-term memory that allows us to remember factual information, making it possible for us to learn different subjects, appear for examinations, and communicate with others. It brings continuity and meaning to our life. Types of memory. In recent years, psychologists have conceptualized memory into 4 types, which is: first, semantic memory, which deals with knowledge, meaning, and generalized experiences. Whatever we remember from books and information about world events and meanings of words are included in it. Thus, we can say that semantic memory refers to general world knowledge that we have accumulated throughout our lives. These facts, ideas, meanings, and concepts that is intertwined in experience and are dependent on culture. Number 2, episodic memory. It refers to the experiences which are personal to an individual. You do so many things in a day. They are your unique experiences. Memory of such experiences is accessible by you only. Episodic memory is the collection of past personal experiences that occurred at a particular time and place. For example, if one remembers the party on his or her 6th birthday, this is an episodic memory. They allow an individual to figuratively travel back in time to remember the event that took place at that particular time and place. Number 3. Procedural memory deals with memory for actions or ways of doing certain things or performing certain activities. The procedural memory is a part of the long-term memory that is responsible for knowing how to do things, also known as motor skills. As the name implies, the procedural memory stores information on how to perform certain procedures, such as walking, talking, and riding a bike. Delving into something in your procedural memory does not include conscious thoughts. For example, the tasks such as playing a piano, driving a car, riding a bike, climbing stairs, etc. all depends on procedural memory. Number 4. The meta memory. It is memory for your memory. We not only remember things but also remember that we can remember. People may be good or poor in understanding their own memories. Meta memory is a type of metacognition, is both the introspective knowledge of one's own memory, capacities and strategies that can aid memory, and the processes involved in memory self-monitoring. This self-awareness of memory has important implications for how people learn and use memories. When studying, for example, students make judgments of whether they have successfully learned the assigned material and use these decisions, known as judgments of learning, to allocate study time. Forgetting. We often fail to remember something, but the question is, why do we forget? It is because the memory has disappeared. It is no longer available. It is not that the memory isn't stored in memory system, but for some reason it cannot be retrieved from the system. It is a common experience that sometimes we are unable to remember information that we need at a particular time. We find that on some occasions this lets us down as we are unable to remember the information that we require desperately. The amount of time the information is stored in the memory depends on the minutes, hours or even days, can increase or decrease depending on how well the information is encoded. Failing to retrieve an event does not mean that this specific event has been forever forgotten. This could just mean that the information was not encoded well. During examinations, we are unable to remember or retrieve what we had learned. This is what we call forgetting. Why does this occur? The first systematic attempt to understand the nature of forgetting was made by Hermann Ebbinghaus, who memorized the list of nonsense syllables and then measured the number of trials he took to relearn the same list at varying time intervals. According to him, the rate of forgetting is maximum in the first 9 hours, particularly during the first hour. After that, the rate slows down and not much is forgotten even after many days. Many explanations have been offered to explain this kind of loss. Theories to explain the causes of forgetting. Number 1. Decay. It is also called deuse theory and is the earliest theory of forgetting. The assumption here is that memory leads to modification in the central nervous system, which is akin to physical changes in the brain called memory traces. When these memory traces are not used for a long time, they simply fade away and become unavailable. This theory has been proved inadequate on several grounds. If forgetting takes place because memory traces decay due to disuse, then people who go to sleep after memorizing should forget more compared to those who remain awake. Simply because there is no way in which memory traces, but the results show just the opposite. Those who remain awake after memorizing show greater forgetting than those who sleep. Some psychologists think that it is due to the gradual fading of memory traces or decay that happens with lapse of time. This does not explain why certain memories fade forever while others seem to be well preserved. Passing of time cannot therefore be considered as the main cause of forgetting. Decay theory did not explain forgetting adequately. It was soon replaced by another theory of forgetting, which suggested that new information that enters the long-term memory interferes with the recall of earlier memories, and therefore interference is the main cause of forgetting. Interference. A more useful explanation is found in the view called interference theory. It argues that memories are lost because of what happens to them during the period when we retain them. Thus, inhibition or interference by subsequently learned material becomes the major cause of forgetting. This theory assumes that learning and memorizing involve forming of associations between items, and once acquired, these associations remain intact in the memory. People keep acquiring numerous such associations, and each of these rests independently without any mutual conflict. However, interference comes about a time of retrieval when these various sets of associations compete with each other for retrieval. There are two types of such interference. Number one, which is the retroactive interference, and number two, the proactive interference. Retroactive interference, acting backwards, occurs when the current information interferes with what has been retained earlier. This is a situation in which earlier information in the memory interferes with the current information. Proactive interference. It is a situation in which earlier information in the memory interferes with the current information, which means the old information in the memory make people forget newly acquired information. In other words, in proactive interference, past learning interferes with the recall of later learning, while in retroactive interference, the later learning interferes with the recall of past learning. For example, if you know English and you find it difficult to learn French, it is because proactive interference. And if, on the other hand, you cannot recall English equivalents of French words that you are currently memorizing, then it is an example of retroactive interference. Level of processing. While learning some material, we may attend to it in detail and process at a deeper level, or neglect it and attend at a surface level. This may be a cause of forgetting. Strategies for enhancing memory. All of us desire to possess an excellent memory system that is robust and dependable. There are a number of strategies for improving memory called mnemonics to help you improve your memory. Some of these mnemonics involve use of images, whereas others emphasize self-induced organization of learned information. There are some tips to enhance one's memory. Number 1, deep processing. Careful planning, considering the meaning of information and relating it to existing knowledge, is helpful in learning it and remembering it later. The depth of processing also refers to the rehearsal of material to be remembered. The more you rehearse, more chances of recalling it later. Number 2, attending carefully. To ensure the retention in long-term memory, you have to put in conscious efforts to attend to it carefully. Number 3, minimize interference. You should try to reduce interference as much as possible. Number 4, distributed practice. While learning some material, it is beneficial to learn it using distributed practice, in which there is a gap between trials. Number 5, using memory aids. People use various cues, indicators and signs to connect event. This often facilitates remembering. You can use visual imagery to remembering object and places. Number 6, shorthand codes. You can develop your own shorthand codes to memorize long list of items, for example, Vibgyor, which includes names of all the colors of the rainbow: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. Repression, forgetting painful events. The events and experiences that are threatening or painful are eliminated from one's consciousness. This is called repression. Freud believed that the repressed memories are pushed into hidden recesses of the unconscious mind. Such repressed memories may cause many psychological problems for the individual. Amnesia refers to a loss of memory due to illness, injury, drug abuse or other causes. Repression is a defense mechanism, a concept of psychoanalysis, but it pre-exists the ego, that is, primal repression. It ensures that what is unacceptable to the conscious mind, which would arouse anxiety, is prevented from entering into it. We can brief the lesson here and say that memory refers to the set of processes involved in storing information, and the specific process is termed as retention. Three basic methods of measuring retention are recall, recognition and relearning. Sensory memory holds representations of sensory input for brief periods of time, depending upon the modality involved. Short-term memory or STM holds relatively small amounts of information for brief periods of time, usually 30 seconds or less. Long-term memory is a memory system for the retention of large amount of information for long periods of time. Forgetting is loss of memory or failure to recall. It is caused by several factors including decay, level of processing and depression. Memory can be enhanced with the help of mnemonic strategies. I wish you a very happy learning and hope this will be helpful for you in your future endeavors. Thank you.